this video, we're talking about creating speed ramps in post. Now, in the last video, we talked about slow motion, how you can turn your 60 frames per second, 120 frames per second, your high frame rate footage, conform it to 24 frames per second in order to get smooth slow motion in post. In this video, we're going to talk about how to do a speed ramp transition, which is basically where you change the speed of the clip during playback. So your clip maybe starts at 100% speed, but then it increases to 200% or it decreases to 50%, whatever it is that you want to do. Let's show you how to do that right now. So in Premiere here, I've got a video pulled up where I've got a speed ramp transition added already, so I can show you what this is going to look like. So let me just kind of play back this clip. We've got a shot here of a guy playing the drums, and right when he hits these cymbals, we kind of go into a close-up shot of this one cymbal. And the cymbal starts out really fast, and then as you can see with the slope here on the timeline, then it slows down and it goes into a slow-mo clip, and then it speeds up just a little bit at the end to go back into the motion. So let me just play that so you can see what's happening. All right, so let's show you how to do this. So this is done using what is called a keyframe in your editing software. And I'm going to show you how to do it in Premiere. It'll work very similarly in any other software. It's pretty standard the way that it typically works. But as you can see here, if we zoom in on this timeline, you can kind of see what's happening. So a keyframe is a point that you place on your timeline or on a clip which signals the certain effect, like a speed effect, for example, here, to be at a certain speed, and then you place another keyframe which could be at a different speed, and the clip will change between those two variables in the effect between that amount of time. So for example, right here on this keyframe at the top of this right here, this is set to 500% speed or something like that. And then down here it's set to 100% speed. So we're going from a really fast clip, slowing it down to a normal slow clip. So let's kind of jump in here and show you how that is done. So I've got my clip here on a duplicate timeline. This clip doesn't have any keyframes or anything on it. So if I play that back, so you'll notice that it's just playing at slow motion. That's because this is a clip that was shot in, I think, 60 frames per second, and then has been conformed in camera to 24 frames per second. Because it was shot on the red, it was conformed automatically. Now, if you're working with a camera that doesn't do that automatically, as most of you probably are, then you would just do what we talked about in the last video, where you would take the clip. If I show you, we'll go and find that clip over here. So here's the clip, and you can see that it's in 23.976 frames per second. What you would do is just take that 60 frames per second clip and do what we talked about in the last video and conform it to 24. You want to make sure to do that first, again, so that the conversion is done automatically by the software, so that you get really smooth slow motion, so that you're not getting dropped frames or anything. And then the parts that you want to be faster motion, so if you want to do an effect like this, what we're going to do here, where it goes from fast to slow, then you just speed up those parts and then bring it back down to 100% for the parts that are slower. Okay, so here's our clip on the timeline. Like we did on, like I showed you, this part of the music, there's kind of a hit, and then it just kind of slows down for a second, and then it goes back into the action. So I'm kind of matching that with the movement of this clip. So we're going to start with it at 100%, and then, maybe around here, we want it to go into full slow motion, and then here it's going to play in slow motion, and then at the end here we want it to speed up really fast just so that it goes right back into the action. So let's go ahead and start setting our keyframes. So the way we're going to do this is, first of all, turn on our animation, our keyframe tool right here next to the speed effect in Premiere. And what this will do is it'll give us two places where we can work on this. In Premiere, it works this way where you can do these effects right on the clip, or you can do them in your effects panel. Like I said, in other software, it'll be very similar the way it works. So what we're going to do is now we've got this line going across the clip right here, and that is just showing us that the clip is at normal 100% speed. See, if I hover over it, you can see that 100%. If we drag this line up and down, we can change the percentage. So I could make this clip play back at 500% like that, and you'll notice that the clip then gets shorter, right? Because now it's playing back faster. All right. So we'll undo that. What we're going to do is we're going to add our keyframe. So by holding Command and then clicking, I can add a keyframe on this clip. So let's say I put it right there. And then I can adjust the position of the keyframe. So this is going to be the beginning of the keyframe, the starting point, and this is going to be the ending point. I want the starting point obviously to be at the very beginning of my clip, so about right there. And then I think we're going to want to end it right around here. Okay. And then what I can do is now if I have that selected and I drag this line on this side of it, let's go up to 500%. It's going to add that keyframe, that speed to that keyframe. So what this is showing us here is that the clip is going to start out playing at 500%, and then over this amount of time, it's going to slow down to 100%. And we're going to want this to be probably a little bit longer. So let me just extend the clip out and let's see how that looks. Okay, I think I want it to last a little bit longer, kind of smoothly take a little bit more time to get down to that slow motion. Okay, cool. And then what we want to happen at the end here is we want it to kind of speed up again. So I'm going to put another keyframe here and just kind of pull this out to about right there. And then again, we're going to go back up, maybe not quite to 500%, but let's say like 430 or thereabouts. And I'll adjust the clip, adjust the keyframes, make sure they're in the right spot. It's kind of tricky because the clip length is going to change as you're adjusting the keyframes because the speed of the clip is changing. And so you just kind of have to go back and forth with adjusting them and then adjusting the end of the clip. And let's see how that looks. Okay, that's about how I want it. So that's a pretty subtle effect there at the end, but you can see how it just kind of slowly speeds up a little bit right there at the end going into the next clip. Now, like I said, you can do all of this up here as well. So you'll notice if we look in our effects panel here, we've got all the same effects, the same curves happening. It works exactly the same way. But the next thing that we're going to do here is use this easing effect to smooth out the transition. So right now, we've got these diagonal lines, which are showing us our clip going from 500% to 100% in a linear line, right? A linear transition. Now, something you can do here is use these, which are called Bezier curves. And a Bezier curve, basically what it does is it takes that linear transition and turns it into more of an S curve. So if I take these little handles right here and I pull them like this, you'll notice that it turns into more of a smoothed out S formation, and you can really see it down here. What that's going to do is going to make the transition from fast to slow not be so linear, and it's just going to make it kind of smooth out. So it'll ease into the transition and then ease out of the transition at the bottom. And then I can do the same thing with that over here at the end. So that'll give us a much nicer, smoother transition. Now, with something like a speed effect, especially where this is moving really fast, this is going to be a subtle thing that you're not going to notice. But if you're using keyframes on anything else, maybe you're adding a blur to something or you have something animating into the frame, 99% of the time, you're pretty much always going to want to use an S curve. Even if it's just a cross dissolve basic transitions, you almost always want to do this because it's just going to make that transition look a lot smoother and a lot nicer, not so like jarring as it moves from one point to the next. So let's see how that looks. Okay, and so I might adjust this, back here a little bit after watching the clip, making just a few adjustments. But did you notice how the transition, you can really feel it, how the transition into the slow motion was a little bit more smooth rather than just kind of jumping from fast to slow. So we'll make some slight adjustments here, kind of move things around a little bit and then try it again. And that's pretty much it. That's the idea. So like I said, you can use these keyframe effects on any type of effect, whether it's a blur or a transition or a cross dissolve or whatever. But in terms of speed ramps, this is kind of how it works. You set the speed where you want it to be at one point, and then you set the speed where you want it to be at another point, and then choose the curve that you want in order to adjust or transition from one speed to the next. So there you go. That's how you create a speed ramp transition, transitioning from a faster speed to a lower speed or a slower speed to a faster speed in your edit. If you have questions about that, feel free to let me know, and we'll see you on the next video.